I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. Hey, welcome in. It's your friend Juck. Appreciate you so much for joining me. We have got some news today, guys. Some big time recruit news. And I mean like the top of the board to update you on. One of them, Luke Wafle, who's absolutely one of my favorites in this class. Got to get Luke Wafle. We got some news on him. My buddy College Football with Sam. You guys may have seen him on the show here with me. He is a student in Ann Arbor. He is an Ohio State and Michigan fan. Michigan first, but he roots for Ohio State legitimately. And it's not a shtick. It's serious. Sam brought up a point, and he's been arguing with some people back and forth on Twitter about it. And it's got me thinking, and I want to reevaluate my stance on the Ohio State offensive line. So basically what he's saying is, do you remember last year, heading into the season, Michigan fans had they came off a national championship. They lost a ton of guys, and they went into last season very confidently thinking that they were a real contender, not just to make the playoffs, but to potentially repeat as national champions. And we're all looking at their roster and the coaching turnover saying like, how could you possibly think that? And they were like, cuz. Well, Sam thinks that we've got the cuz attitude a little bit when it comes to not the team. He thinks the team is definitely a playoff and a national championship contender, but specifically as it relates to the offensive line. So what I want to do is, and I'm very high on the offensive line, I want to go over some things on the offensive line and some points that he made and see if maybe I should reevaluate my stance based on the information that he supplied. Am I looking through at this offensive line through scarlet colored glasses because the last time we saw these guys was completing the greatest run in college football history? How much carryover will there be? How much improvement was there really? So we're going to go over that. But first, and I apologize to those of you who don't love recruiting, it's just a really slow month for Buckeye news, kind of heavy for recruiting news. And I know this week there's been a lot of it. So we will get to the offensive line segment, but I want to start with this. 247 has rolled out their initial 32 5-stars in the class of 2026. What's a 5-star? A 5-star is a projected first-round pick. That's why there's 32 first-round draft picks. And the list filled with Buckeye targets and potential Buckeyes, as we've been talking about, plenty of them recently. But there's a couple of rankings that I do want to talk about specifically. First, an interesting one. There was, yesterday, all the hubbub about Jackson Cantwell and the number one overall recruit. He's not in 247's latest. Brandon Faison Brandon, and he is a quarterback who is very similar to Vince Young, his high school film anyway, out of North Carolina, committed to Tennessee. That's the number one player, not Cantwell. The number two player, Zion Ellie, is a defensive end out of Maryland that is committed to Maryland, the number two player in the country. And then the number three player in the country is Keyshawn Henderson, a quarterback committed to Houston. So the number two and number three player committed to places that you would never think of in a million years in the old days, Maryland and Houston, for the number two and number three player in the country, which is pretty wild. The number one wide receiver in the country is unfortunately not Chris Henry Jr., though it should be. It might be in the end, who knows, but it's currently Tristan Keys. He's committed to LSU out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. We'll see how much Chris Henry can rise after he plays his senior season. He was injured his junior year. USC has a couple of 5-stars up here, up at the top. Braylon Womack, the Buckeyes' top safety target left on the board, out of Mississippi, checks in at number 12. At number 15, you got Rodney Dunham. He is a defensive end committed to Notre Dame, and that was a big get for them. At number 16 and 17, a couple of Buckeye targets. Number 16, Darius Gray, offensive lineman out of Virginia, interior offensive lineman, one of the single best football players in this class, in my opinion. And then at 17, Savion Hyder. Savion Hyder, a running back, also out of Virginia, that obviously the Bucs have been in on big for a while. He's got it down to his final four. And Brian Hartline and Carlos Loughlin were just visiting him on Wednesday at his school. And that visit is the second visit that Carlos Loughlin has gone down and seen him in 3 weeks. So now that you've got Hartline with this time on his hands, a little extra time, because he's got his 4 guys locked in for this class. Of course, he's going to be working on 27. Already in 27, he's got the number 1 dude in Jameer Brown committed, but he's going to be putting some work on 27. But now he can go as to these kids, he's the most famous offensive coordinator in the country, and he can go assist these guys. I think it's great. I love it. He's helping Tyler Atkinson. He's helping Tyler Bowen. Obviously, he's helping Coach Locke. Now, you may have noticed when I was running down through that list that I did not tell you where Jackson Cantwell was rated. Jackson Cantwell, the number 1 offensive lineman in the country. It's all we've heard. The number 1 overall player, number 1 offensive lineman. Here's a shocker. Drew Rosenhaus's client, Jackson Cantwell, is not the best offensive lineman. He's not even number 2. He's number 3 in the updated rankings. So that must mean Manny Iheanacho is number 2, right? It's been those 2 heads and shoulders above the rest. Some people think Manny's even better, but he's probably going to end up at Oregon. Surprise, surprise, it's not Manny either. Manny is number 5. Well, who the heck is number 1 if it's not Cantwell and it's not Manny? It's Felix Ojo, of course. Big Felix, number 1 offensive lineman in the country, which makes 5-star targets that the Buckeyes are after. You got Felix, you've got Braylon Womack, Darius Gray, Sabian Hyder, Tyler Atkinson. But I want to talk about Felix here. After all this drama over Jackson Cantwell, all the outrage about him going to Miami, people were so angry about it. Felix ends up being the dude here. And here's the craziest part about Felix. Felix is a year younger than these guys. These dudes are all 18 years old now. Felix is 16 right now. I got a chance to talk to Felix for the first time on Wednesday. His birthday is not until July. So he is a full year younger than Cantwell and then Iheanacho and Darius Gray. All of them. He's a year younger, and he's the number 1 dude, which means the tape that we're watching a kid who just turned 16 years old, playing high-level football, varsity football. And look at the tweet that he sent out. Number 1, a really confident kid. But take a look at this tweet. Look at the people that he went against. So Felix says, dominated against this competition while playing in the hardest district in Texas. I can assure you I'm one of them ones. 5-star Colin Simmons, number 1 defensive end in the nation. 5-star Jakeem Stewart, number 1 defensive end in the nation. 4-star Elijah Barnes, number 1 linebacker in Texas. 4-star KJ Ford, number 11 defensive end in the nation. And absolutely, we're talking about some serious dudes here. Felix has gone up against those guys, and he is much younger than Colin Simmons. Jakeem Stewart reclassified, so he's probably just a year younger than him. But you get the point. The kid is a kid, man. And Tyler Bowen, he's really, really in on this one. Just took a visit down last week to see him. Felix said Coach Bowen's a great person and a great offensive mind that knows what he's doing. The visit went great. We just talked ball, talked more about his plan for me. And Coach Bowen has done a great job here in this recruitment. Felix clearly loves Ohio State. The Buckeyes are without a doubt in his top 3. Many people they're in his top 2, feel they're in his top 2. And most of the projections on him are to Texas, as he's a Texas kid. They're the hometown school. They've got the funds to pay, and they're not afraid to pay for a high-level guy, max deal. And I've talked a lot about the last couple of years, the modern recruiting era. And of course, I sound like an old man when I talk about it, like wishing for the good old days. I'm really not. I perfectly understand people making decisions over money. It doesn't feel as good as it used to me as a college football fan, but I understand their decisions. But sometimes I think their priorities are a little off. And that irritates me. Like, we constantly hear them bringing up who showed them the most love. And we just played Richie Wesley the other day, commits to Oregon with the creepy video. Oregon showed him the most love. And all these players in schools have been showing love, showing love, showing love. We get it. You're very loved and cared for. Jackson Cantwell said it yesterday in between bashing Pete Nakos. I want to hear these guys say, like, we know that they're wanted, right? They're offering them a scholarship and recruiting them. We get that part. Like, what place do you love the most? That's where it should be. Showing the most love just gives this image of pampering. And I don't want a pampered player. I get it. They want to feel special, but I want to know where they want to go. Who do they love the most? And it just seems to me a lot of these guys are in for a rude awakening. Like Ryan Day said in the offseason, everything is positive when you're a recruit. Things change real fast when you get on campus. However, as a recruiter, you don't get to make the rules, man. You just got to play ball. What do we know about Ohio State when it comes to the Felix Ojo recruitment? They are playing ball. When it comes to showing the most love, I don't know if it's the most, but Felix has got Carlos Lachlan, Brian Hartline, Tyler Bowen, Ryan Day, all contacting him every day. Not every single one of them every day, but one of them is on him every day. All of these offensive coaches are getting a hold of this kid, and there's just no way that anybody could be possibly showing more love. They're right up in there in the box checked for love showing category, box checked for defending champs, box checked for championship contender, box checked Felix feels for a path to early playing time. He said it himself. All the boxes seem checked here. He loves the family atmosphere, whole lot of positives. But what about the one thing that landed Jackson Cantwell to Miami? $2.5 million a year goes to Cantwell in Miami for 2 years, 5-year deal. These people are paying for 2 years. Year one, is he even going to play? Like, gosh, you're getting $5 million for 1 year out of this kid, unless you play him as a freshman. But when you look at one of the top 2 most respected recruiting services in the country, ranking Felix Ojo over Jackson Cantwell, older by more than a year, he gets $2.5 million a year. The first thing I'm doing if I'm Felix's dad is signing Drew Rosenhaus, because my son at 16 is worth more than that kid at 18 who just signed for $5 million. He just is. And don't think for a second that those rankings aren't tied into this. That assists in the negotiations of the value assigned to these players when we're talking about turning it into dollar value. And the market was just set with Jackson Cantwell. I'm saying all this to say Felix Ojo is now worth a whole lot more money than we thought last week, now that this Cantwell deal has gone through. Ohio State, like Georgia, previously Alabama under Saban, not under Kalen DeBoer, can get a discount. That whole most first-round picks ever and third most draft picks in the history of the NFL draft, playing on a big stage every single week, those things have real tangible value. They get you drafted higher. They really do. It works. You got Ohio State, you got Georgia. Nobody else is getting those kind of discounts, but it isn't that much of a discount. They're also going against the home state school of Texas, who will absolutely pay up for a 5-star number 1 offensive lineman in the country. They'll pay a max deal for that. Remember, this is the last cycle before the revenue sharing, the last time that everyone is positive that they can throw around as much money as they want with zero oversight. We don't know what's going to happen with the clearinghouse and such. We don't know how it's going to go down. Is it going to get shot down in court? We don't know. But we know right now there's no oversight, and we know that they all have collectives with money sitting there, and they can go use that money right now as much as they want. And that's what we saw in the transfer portal with teams like Texas Tech, some other teams, both windows, just going and blowing money. Now, Texas wasn't one of them, but you'd only know that if you looked it up yourself or you watched JUCK on Bucks. They're trying to saddle Texas with the Ohio State label from last year. Texas portal class outside, well, it's 24th in the country. Ohio State's 26th. They only took 8 position players, same as Ohio State, but 5 of them were defensive linemen. So because that made the news so much, it felt like they were just out there spending like they had the number 1 class, which they weren't. Ohio State, will they pay if they win this recruitment? Like, you can win everything in the recruitment, but will you do the thing you need to do in the end and pony up that money? Like, you did everything else you needed to. You obviously showed the love to the prospect. Are you going to pay the money? Is it worth $2 million a year? I made my opinion clear yesterday when it comes to these number one offensive lineman types. Now, I absolutely want Felix Ojo for sure. But when you're looking and you got a set pool of money, and I'm looking over here on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm looking at Carter Meadows, and I'm looking at Luke Wafle, and Preston Carey, and Jake Krull, and Jackson Ford. I've already got Sam Greer. I've already got Max. I've already got Tucker. I've got a lot of guys on the board here. Felix is going to be the most expensive of those offensive linemen. I need defensive linemen. Now, I don't know what the whole budget is, but I do know Ojo going to take a disproportionate amount of that. I have a different philosophy than I do with number one defensive lineman than I do number one offensive lineman. Why? Doesn't make any sense. Well, here's why. Highly rated defensive lineman, number one, they have a much lower bust potential. They're much easier to spot because it's all about traits. Number two, they can come in and impact immediately as a freshman. You look at Dylan Stewart, Colin Simmons last year, two of the best rushers in the country. They were freshmen. So you're actually getting return on that money immediately. Miami, like I said, paying this kid $5 million for 2 years, you're not even going to see him year one. And if he's on the field, boy, you got issues. But elite defensive linemen, game wreckers. They can be total game wreckers. Elite defensive linemen, you talk about the difference between very good and great at a position. How much does it affect your college football team? How much does it affect the score when you have a great defensive end versus a good one? I think it's a big difference. When we talk about an offensive tackle, I'm more concerned about having a great unit than a great individual player. And that's the difference for me when it comes to big spending on the offensive line versus the defensive line. Now, Felix is number one. This thing has become a whole heck of a lot more interesting. And when we talk about defensive line, let's get to that because we got some good news. Now, last week we talked about Luke Wafle. Luke Wafle out of the Hun School in Princeton, New Jersey. Sounds really fancy. I think it is. They wear Buckeye uniforms at the high school, just like Peyton Pierce down at his high school at Lovejoy in Texas. They wear Buckeye uniforms, and Luke Wafle, one of them dudes that looks damn good in a uniform, man. We're talking about a Jack Sawyer-looking kid at 18 years old. I mean, like present-day Jack Sawyer. He's jacked. He tosses high school kids around. He's fast. He's a hard worker, got a great attitude. Culturally, he's a great fit. I love everything about Luke Wafle, but his last name puts it over the top for me. Like, I'm getting that jersey, custom made. I don't care. I want it so bad. Should he be a Buckeye? Of course. I'm not going to get it if he goes to Penn State. Of course, I'm not going to. He wouldn't even have his name on the back of the jersey if he went to Penn State. That would be a travesty. And here his brother's at Penn State. That is a travesty. I didn't even put that together till right now. His brother goes to Penn State. Their last name's Wafle. I don't think it's pronounced like that, but I don't care. And he doesn't have his name on the back of his jersey. Terrible. You cannot go to Penn State, Notre Dame, or USC if you got a sweet last name. You have to sport it on the back of your jersey. Well, Luke Wafle had visits from Jason Taylor from Miami, and Miami was all of a sudden in the thing. Then he went and visited Texas. Texas was in the thing. It looked like things were getting whittled down, and then all of a sudden, the water's kind of muddied up. Well, the number one prospect in New Jersey, Luke Wafle, has now narrowed it down, and he has got his final four set. He's got his official visits scheduled, and this is it. In the final four, Ohio State, USC, Texas, and Penn State. Penn State, again, where his brother is, very close to where he lives, does really well in New Jersey. So does Ohio State. It's a real spread out bunch. Down to Texas, over to USC. Then you got the close one with Penn State, and you got Ohio State. I really think he likes Ohio State. We know what USC's trying to do. Texas, sure, it's appealing. You got the brother at Penn State. If you got a tie, I don't know. I think that the brother may help you win the tie. When I look at Blaine Bradford, what Ohio State was able to do, pulling Blaine Bradford out of Louisiana with his brother as a freshman at LSU, I am no longer scared of situations like this. I now know it can be done. Like, you can definitely pull a New Jersey brother and keep him from going to Penn State if you can get that done. Well, I take that back. Matt Guerrieri could get that done. Can they get it done with the defensive line? I don't know. It's not like we've seen him land a you know what? I don't even want to say it. Like Luke Wafle, he's not a 5-star. He's not, I guess I don't know how they view him. Like he's not a guy that, that is an automatic, like everybody's going to view this guy the same way because he's that great, because he's that twitchy and that strong. I view him like that. Like to me, he's over Jake Krull on my board, and Jake Krull is almost a 5-star. He's been like 36 in the country. But to me, Luke Wafle is that dude. They're different styles of defensive end. Jake Krull is more of a speed rusher. Luke Wafle is more of a strong side defensive end. But to me, Wafle's the dude. Anyway, there are some other guys out there on the board, high-level defensive end prospects, and we need the interior guys as well. But Luke Wafle says about Ohio State, the people in their hunger to win every day stands out. Coach Larry Johnson is one of, if not the greatest to ever do it. Wafle added development stands out about the Buckeyes, and he gave his March trip high marks. Columbus was great. My favorite thing about the program is definitely the people. They're really great people who just love football. You can tell how badly they want to win. It's very inspiring. The things we've been hearing about guys that come to visit Ohio State makes you feel really good, man. It really does. Now, let's get to Tyler Bowen and Aaron Thomas. Aaron Thomas, we happened to bring up in the last episode. Aaron Thomas, 6'7" offensive tackle out of Arizona, 3-star top 600 player, but that's because he just flipped from defense to offense. And the 1 year of film you got on him is a guy playing his first year on the offensive line. At times, it looked really doggone good, really dominant, got a bright future. We just talked about him, and his dad went to Florida State. His mom went to Florida State. His dad was an offensive lineman at Florida State. The grandmother's side of the family, Ohio people, Cleveland people, big Buckeye fans, and he was really excited when he came up to visit Ohio State, and he had a great visit. Now, he's now cut it down to his final 5. He's got officials scheduled: Florida State, Ohio State, Texas, Texas A&M, and Washington. Despite him being a Florida State legacy, I think that this is Texas A&M and Ohio State. And I don't know how hard the Bucs are pushing for it, but he said that Coach Bowen visited him just on Wednesday. So it seems like he's a pretty high priority, though I've not really heard a ton about it until that visit, other than when he first came up, that he was a high priority. But it sounds like he's a pretty damn good priority, though our guy Bowen's been hanging around in Texas. Like, he's going and hitting everybody. So we'll see if Texas A&M makes him an offer. I don't think there's going to be a big offer coming his way from Ohio State. There could be from Texas A&M, though. And they seem to just be giving everybody a good offer this cycle, kind of like USC. Now, speaking of USC, here's the big news coming out of USC. We've talked for a while about their class, which is 27 guys currently in their class. And to put that in perspective, Ohio State has 13. That's the number 3 class in the country. LSU has like 9. That's the number 2 class in the country. They got 27. They've just gone insane, offering everybody in California that's a 3-star, like 13 3-stars in California. Bring them all on. Bring them into the class. And then they went out and paid a lot of money to get a lot of top talent across the country. 8 top 100 players. The headliner of the class, Xavier Griffin from Georgia, a sick linebacker. Some people think he might be better than Tyler Atkinson, including my brother. I think he's nuts, but he's that caliber of player. He's a freaky, freaky dude. I'll play a little bit of his film here. Now, he's been committed to USC since last July. And a lot of people were joking that this class looks just like last year's class, where USC had a couple of Georgia kids like Xavier Griffin committed right up at the top of the class, and they ended up flipping out. And A lot of jokes that this one was going to look just like that too. Xavier Griffin was going to flip out. Well, Xavier Griffin apparently wanted to go take a lot of visits. USC did not want him taking all these visits, and he has stepped out. So he is out of the class, back on the market, and he's been taking a bunch of visits over the spring. Took like 5 different visits, went to Georgia, went to Florida, went all over the place. An interesting strategy by Lincoln Riley, who didn't want him to take these visits, and they parted ways. If every coach did this, we would see an end to this thing, right? But not everybody's going to do it. We know Brent Venables does that down in Oklahoma. He doesn't let guys go take visits. He's still on that. I wish that more of them would do this. I just hate it selfishly because it makes it harder to follow recruiting. It makes it harder. But kudos to our man Lincoln, who I can't stand this guy, but I think that's kind of a moral stand. I like it. Not moral. He stood his ground. He didn't kowtow to the 5-star. He said, go ahead, leave. And the kid left. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this kid up is not just to troll Lincoln Riley losing his top player, which is hilarious. James Laurinaitis and Alabama have apparently gone and visited this kid recently. And his 4 officials have come out. He's got him scheduled already. His officials, Ohio State, then Alabama, Texas, Florida State. James Laurinaitis was out here getting himself in the mix for this 5-star, trying to flip him out of USC, and landed an official. I didn't hear a word about James Laurinaitis visiting this kid or him being even a possibility of being on the board. So James, now with the number 1 and 2 linebacker in the mix here with Tyler Atkinson and Xavier Griffin, 1 and 2, the top 2 linebackers in the class. Both will be taking official visits to Ohio State. Tyler Atkinson, of course, Ohio State, either his number 1 or number 2. You got Sincere Johnson now, a top 50 linebacker in the country, who may ultimately end up moving down. Who knows? But he's a linebacker now. What do you think the odds are James Laurinaitis lands one of these 2? I think they're pretty damn good. I think he's something special, man. Just to be able to pull that official visit off of such little contact. I mean, there are unlimited officials. He could add more, and we've seen guys like Darius Gray schedule 8. I feel like it is so difficult now. Like, you always used to want to be the last official visit. I like how Ohio State's the first here. These dudes are going to get burnt out. Like, I don't see these guys getting through these 8 officials. I mean, it's just crazy, dude. It sounds great to go get pampered on 8 officials. You get past 5, like, it's all the same thing at this point, right? But interesting, man. James got himself in on another 5-star, the top 1 and top 2 linebacker in the country. I would like to ask you, my dear friends, to please like the show. Please subscribe to the show. By the time you're watching this, odds are we're probably 10 subscribers away from that 15,000 goal. So if you could, please subscribe. If you're not, if you are the 15,000th subscriber, I am going to, of course, thank you and shout you out on the show. So just let me know if you're that person in the comments. We will check your comments in a minute and get to them. But let's get to our offensive line conversation and Sam's points. Sam, talking about the offensive line, saying we're all looking at this with rose-colored glasses, scarlet-colored glasses, as it were, because we're so amped up and we're so excited at the opportunity to repeat, and because we saw so many of these pieces make it through the national championship run on the offensive line that are coming back. And also, you bring in Ethan Onianwa. Now, last year, coming into the season, I thought Ohio State would have a top 5 offensive line. And with those starters, I nailed it. It was definitely a top 5 offensive line with those original starters, with McLaughlin, Donovan at guard, and Simmons at left tackle. Now, they finished with a very different looking line. Now, as we enter into 2025, Donovan Jackson, Josh Simmons, Seth McLaughlin, all off to the NFL. But you did get a lot of great experience for 4 guys that are coming back and playing. Carson Hinsman, Luke Montgomery, Tegra Tshebola, Austin Sierreveld. All of these guys played, all are projected starters. So it's this weird kind of thing where, yeah, you lost all this production off of the offensive line, but then you got these guys who are the ones that actually won the national championship coming back. These guys took us through the greatest college football run we've ever seen. Defenses that were very well respected, this team destroyed them, and these guys were running point. They were the front line here. How could you possibly not be confident when you've got those guys and then you get to add on Ethan Onianwa? Let's start with what we think will be the starting lineup right now. And I think we can pretty much accurately say what it will be going into camp. Who knows if anything changes, but Ethan Onianwa at left tackle, Luke Montgomery at left guard, Carson Hinsman at center, Tegra Tshebola at right guard, Austin Sierreveld at right tackle, we think. Now, what gives Sam's pause is there are no 5 stars. There are no super highly rated guys. And he took us through some PFF grades. Now, Ethan Onianwa, a 69 PFF grade. Sam concedes that's very, very good. And he is obviously touted by some to be a second, or obviously a second at latest draft pick if he just has a solid season. So, Ethan, good to go. Got yourself a solid left tackle. Luke, 66.5. Luke had good moments in the starting lineup, but only 261 snaps. Sam has his doubts about that. And I agree with Sam. It's tough being totally objective on Luke. Like I've seen Luke all through this, as have you guys, like through high school, his maturation at Ohio State, getting kind of beat down as a freshman, and it almost felt like he was losing a little confidence. And then last spring, Luke is the starting right guard all through spring, 10 practices, and then just kind of loses it. And we don't see him play till late in the season. And then he comes in, great attitude, kicking butt. You see him kind of get better every single game, it felt like. So now you see Luke, and it looks like he's kind of emerged as a leader. He's got just a great attitude about everything. He's bigger. And I look at Luke with crazy confidence. And I guess if we're going to judge these guys, I suppose we'll say, if you're judging them on a scale here of 0 being Zen Mahalski, 5 being Josh Fryer, and 10 being Donovan Jackson, where do we put Luke Montgomery in that scale? Where do we put Ethan? I'll say Ethan is closer, in my opinion, to Donovan Jackson than Josh Fryer, who I consider to be just an average Big Ten player, offensive lineman. So I'm going to put Ethan at a 7.5. And Luke, I'm going to put Luke at a 7 with big time potential. So Luke's already a 7, already better than Josh Fryer, in my opinion. And Josh Fryer is a national championship winning starting right tackle. So that's pretty damn good. At center, Carson Hinsman. Carson Hinsman coming out of high school, top 200 kid overall. I should mention Luke was a top 150 kid overall coming out of high school. It's not like these guys were, that's not a 5-star, but that's a high level 4-star. So 2 higher level 4-stars. Carson, PFF grade was 56 in 600 snaps. That's not very good. I'll concede that. He's also a guy that I thought we saw get steady better. Obviously, as a youngster, starting at center, did not do good. His PFF grade back then was under 50. So he certainly has gotten better. He's also gotten noticeably bigger. I think he is a more than capable guard. I think he's a better guard than he is a center. Are we overvaluing Hinsman as a center? I think I hear a lot of people talk about Carson Hinsman as a center and feel really, really strong about it. Talk about him like we've talked about some of our better centers returning. I don't think he's that. I don't think he's Josh Fryer either. I think he's 6. He's a number 6 on my scale between Fryer in Donovan Jackson. I got him at a 6, but another guy we've also seen improve. So I think we will see him improve more in 2025 as well. Tegra, the highest rated recruit of this crew. He was a top 50 kid overall, 57.7 grade. Some of those monsters are just large men that get pushed into football because there's a potential future in football or because their parents think they'll be good at football. But they don't love football. They're just big guys. And in high school, they can destroy kids. They destroy them. Doesn't mean they love it. So I'm always trying to look, is this someone who really loves it? Or are they just a freaky athlete and a really big dude and they advance up the levels of football? That is not Tegra Tshebola. Tegra Tshebola's high school film is nasty. And if you've seen it, you know it. He looks like he's having the time of his life. And when you look at him at Ohio State, he looks like a liability sometimes. And I don't get it. It's like the love has been zapped away from him. He used to play with so much emotion. He'd punch the ground. You would never know from watching him at Ohio State. I don't get it. I don't get it. A high-level Ohio kid, and he's obviously a starter at Ohio State. But to me, he's more of a 4. I put him slightly under Josh Fryer's senior year anyway. Obviously the ceiling is high, but constant mistakes. Looks like he takes it easy sometimes. To me, he's the lowest rated guy on the offensive line returning. And if you had an opportunity to replace him, and there are opportunities, which we'll discuss in a second. But at right tackle, Austin Siereveld. Not a super highly rated. I would say he was top 400 guy. But Notre Dame, Alabama, and Ohio State were his final 3, and Bama and Notre Dame really wanted him. So not like he was some scrub coming out of high school. Buckeyes end up keeping him home, another Ohio kid. What did he do last year? He's filled in a lot of guard, was part of the rotation, and he started off strong, and then kind of in the middle of the season, things weren't great, and then he started getting his mojo back a little bit at the end. But what he's done this offseason, when you've got the head coach talking about you the way Ryan Day has talked about Austin Siereveld, I'm going to feel damn good about the kid, right? Like, how many guys did Ryan Day tell us over the spring were going to start? How many? I can't remember if he said it about anybody else but Siereveld. I know he didn't say on the offensive line anybody but Siereveld. And that and winning the Iron Buckeye, one of just 3 guys on the team, pretty much tells us everything we need to know. Also getting the start at right tackle in the spring game. He's going to be a starter. We can assume he's starting at right guard, or right tackle, I think. But does he have to? We know how we do this, right? We go, and they've reformatted this system. There's not just going to be a backup first tackle off the bench and a backup first guard off the bench. The 6th guy, the 6th best guy, is the guy coming in next, which means if Tegra Tshebola is not one of your 5 best, he comes out of the lineup. If your next 6th best guy is a tackle, then that means Austin Siereveld slides down and takes that role, and Ian Moore or Philip Daniels slide into tackle. If the next best guy is Josh Padilla, that means Tegra comes out, Carson Hinsman slides over, and Padilla's playing center. So the question is, can Philip Daniels, Ian Moore, or Josh Padilla, in the eyes of the coaches, take over that number 5 spot from Tegra? If so, we could see some movement. We could. And obviously, that's what camp's for. So when it comes to a grade for Siereveld, I'm going to give him a 7 with a pretty big ceiling. I think he's currently he's 6. He's a 6. He's, based on what we saw last, he's a 1-notcher above Fryer. Maybe I'm even disrespecting Fryer here. Maybe Fryer's a 6. Maybe somebody else is a 5. Maybe I should get a new number. Doesn't matter. You get the point. You understand where I'm grading these guys, right? Now, the thing is, the way I felt about that unit, to Sam's point, my grades right there were like 7s and 6s and 7s and 6s. The way I felt about that unit like they were a bunch of 10s. So in a way, he's got there's credence to his point. I was certainly more amped up, and when I looked at him, each guy, maybe my grades were a little bit lower than I would have graded the unit. And that's very much to my point, though. An offensive line is a unit. And that unit won a national championship. You got 4 guys from that unit back. I think it matters. And I think you got some great leadership on that unit with Saraveld, with Luke, with Hinsman, who's now a vet. I mean, these dudes are close. So I think that matters as well. I feel pretty good about it. I still feel pretty good about it. Interested to know where you guys feel about those grades for the offensive line. Now, let's see if you have any comments, and we'll wrap this puppy up. Let me see if you guys brought it today. Hang on. All right, we got a couple here. We'll start off with our guy, Natty Time, who says, I'm with you, Juck. My Saturday is pregame starting at 9 or 10, football till 1 or 2 a.m., depending if the late game can keep it close. Love my college football. That's it, man. That's the schedule. Don't bother me during the fall on Saturday. They all know. They don't even give me a hard time about it. Like, it's great. It really is great. Good family. Michael Newman says, you're 100% right when it comes to recruiting and Ohio State having a lack of night games. It's affecting our recruiting. Mike, I heard somebody push back on this just yesterday. And the pushback was, I don't believe it's hurting our recruiting. We got a top 5 class every year, which is like the dumbest argument I've ever heard in my life. I can promise you that we have heard, matter of fact, we just heard last year, Jared Curtis, number 1 quarterback, just signed at Georgia. Buckeyes were in on him big when Corey Dennis was in. Corey Dennis leaves. He commits to Georgia. He decommits. He wanted to come up and visit and could not make it, like a lot of guys can't, because they play high school football Friday night. Then they can't wake up in time or aren't willing to wake up on 3 or 4 hours of sleep and come travel. Here's another point. To come travel for a noon game. I was listening to an interview with, oh my gosh, this linebacker, I got to remember his name. Linebacker out of North Carolina, doing an interview with Mark Givler on their Southern Swing, talking about his visit to Ohio State. And this kid was like, well, I played a game and I was so tired. Like, I was watching the game. Like, I just wanted to go to sleep. This kid's literally saying this. He's at Ohio Stadium giving an interview saying, I just wanted to go to sleep. I was on like 2 hours of sleep. That's what these guys are coming away with. That's not great. But that's not even the biggest thing to me. I think the biggest thing to me is the difference between a night game at Ohio Stadium versus a noon game versus a noon game at Ohio Stadium. You're going to Tennessee at night. You're going to Neyland to see Tennessee and Georgia at night. You're going to Sanford Stadium to see Georgia Ole Miss at night. Comparing that to a noon game at Ohio Stadium, you might as well be watching a different sport. It doesn't represent us well. And if I was a kid, I'd think like, man, the Big Ten sucks. Like that's what I'd come, and that's the reputation. We got to counteract that reputation. Instead, we're getting pigeonholed into that reputation and such. And Chad says, I was just trying to think of the last night game I went to, Juckster. I think it was either Akron or Toledo. Pause there. It is absurd that we play MAC games at night. Absolutely ridiculous. But the atmosphere isn't the same for the MAC games as it is for primetime matchups. I think Fox is hosing themselves when the next TV rights deal comes up. No one wants to be locked in at noon every week because you have the biggest brand. I think he makes a great point. Like, there will be a next go round of this. They're going to have to come back to the table when this deal's over. Who's going to, like, obviously there will be stipulations for Ohio State, but when people see what Ohio State's gone through, what Ohio State fans and all the nonsense that we've been going through and bitched about for all this time, like, who wants to sign up with Big Noon, man? They suck. They suck. Now, I'm a defender of the product. It's great once in a while, but there's got to be some kind of rotation, and Big Noon not going to want to rotate in. Well, no, they can't do the home teams on the West Coast. They don't want to choose Indiana or Iowa or Illinois when Ohio State or Penn State have a decent matchup. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know how they're going to get around this, but it's a good point by Chad. It's going to make for a contentious deal. Jimmy Newberger says, we should leave the Big Ten ASAP. Membership does nothing for us. Playoffs are rewarding ND with an at-large bid. We could take that. Petitti's response to the scum cheating was very weak, and taking the brunt of Big Noon sucks. These are all fair points. And if I didn't think that we were eventually going to these two mega conferences and Notre Dame was going to be forced to join a conference, I totally agree with you. It would be amazing if we could do our own schedule every year. Are you kidding me? I'm so jealous that Notre Dame gets to do that. Now, their schedule is always, it's not fun. They could make it so much fun, but it's not. They did just sign the deal to play Clemson, I think for 12 years, which is awesome. Get to see that every year. But being able to do your own schedule every year and not be locked into a conference schedule and have, like Notre Dame has, their own network when they just had the NBC contract, like that would be so cool. And we could absolutely do what they do. We could demand everything they demand and get it. They also get that entire chunk of the money from the playoffs, which, now that we're in the era of, by the way, I heard somebody talking about, it was about adding playoff teams and automatic qualifiers. And these conferences have to protect themselves now. They need to make more money because here comes the revenue share. They've got to make more money. We need to recognize that they need to make more money because they have to pay this $22 million. The Big Ten last year, every team got a $50 to $80 million raise. The revenue sharing is paying out 22. So you still netted out a huge positive here. They don't need to make any more money. They're all good. I did see that Ross Bjork and was talking to the Toledo Blade about potentially selling the naming rights to the game. Like, the Ohio State-Michigan game, the game brought to you by a sponsor. And I love that idea if it keeps them away from slapping a badge, Victoria's Secret badge on our jerseys, which has been floated, as well as changing the name of the stadium. Go ahead, name the games. That's good. I'll take that. That is the much lesser of the evils. You guys had a whole lot of comments about Joel Klatt. Whole lot of Joel Klatt comments. He is definitely on the crap list to the modern day Buckeye fan. That's for sure. Canceled his alerts and all that, but you can set the alerts for Juck on Bucks for whenever I go live. Once I get my Starlink, it should be a lot better. But we're still going to go live. We're going to go live here. I felt like I had a bad day that day. It was just a bad glitchy day. I think it'll be all good soon. And we'll probably try to do a live show on Saturday. I don't want to do it on Friday because if it doesn't work, it'll ruin my show. The weekend show doesn't get many viewers. I just like to hang out with you guys. So we'll probably try to do that this weekend. But anyway, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Appreciate you so much. Please like and subscribe. Juckin' Bucks out.